If you had, the Gnome Foundation will be strangely bigoted against shamans on your 2013 open source bingo card. Boy, today is your lucky day because that's actually happened. Sometimes when I sit down to type up an article, a bit of open source Linux and technology news, I am dumbfounded that I'm typing the headline at all. And this is one of those cases. I never thought I would type this up. Gnome is shaman-shaming their new executive director. This is a real thing that's happening. And it's not so much hard-hitting breaking news as just so weird we have to talk about it for a minute. A quick overview if you haven't been following along. Last week, the Gnome Foundation, I think it was last Wednesday, announced that they had hired a new executive director. This is good news. They'd been looking for an executive director for quite some time. Fantastic. The executive director they hired, according to their announcement, didn't really have a whole heck of a lot of experience, a little bit here or there, but it looked pretty light. And so I decided, well, I'll write an article about the new executive director, and I began to look up her details. Her name was Holly Million. And I began to look for what Holly Million had done in the recent past. And what I came to was she'd pretty much just been a professional shaman. Now, not in a religious way. Like, she wasn't like historically, like her family wasn't from a long line of practicing shamans or something like that. Apparently, sometime about a decade ago or so, she decided that she was a shaman and she was going to become a professional shaman. And so that was her job. That's her career path. And I found this, let's just say, amusing. Because it's funny. The Gnome Foundation, an organization that as their logo uses the footprint of a mythical creature, hired a shaman to lead them. That's funny. Maybe this particular shaman, this new gnome shaman, will do a great job. Maybe this person will do the best job of any executive director in history. I don't know yet. We'll find out. But nonetheless, it's a funny thing. The more I dug into her, the funnier it got. She does remote clearings via Zoom calls. She records YouTube videos of creating holy water, which she then sells via Venmo in little jars. And she actually has a 3-part course for teaching people how to become a professional shaman like her. So she sells people a class to teach them how to be in her profession. Like, this is what she does, right? This isn't like a side hobby. This is her thing. And this was very funny. And so, of course, I made a bit of fun of it. I even wrote a little parody about the KDE Foundation hiring a dwarf paladin as their executive director, which I'm just going to read you right now because it's very, very funny. Earlier today, the KDE Foundation... I make myself laugh. The KDE Foundation, maintainers of the second largest Linux desktop environment, announced that Tomdol Strongshout, a dwarf paladin, had been hired to fill their top position within the organization. Quote, Tomdol's unique blend of dwarven specs combined with his paladin class spells, such as Word of Glory and Crusader Strike, are precisely what the KDE Foundation was looking for as we enter this new chapter in the battle for the Linux desktop. And for Azeroth, stated one member of the KDE hiring committee. KDE users and developers across the internet were quick to voice their support for the new executive director. Quote, I'm stoked to see where your leadership takes KDE Plasma and the rest of the KDE software collection, stated one enthusiastic KDE user. The exciting recent advancements in the Qt API and your experience fighting the undead horde are an excellent match. In other news, rumors are circulating that the Linux Foundation is preparing the announcement of a new president. Greek Death Battle, an orc warrior who anonymous insiders describe as, quote, a pretty good tank. I couldn't help myself. See, this is the thing. This story is funny. It's amusing. It's funny. Does it mean that she is going to be a terrible executive director? No, she could be literally the best executive director ever, but it's objectively funny. When someone hands this to you, you have to laugh about it. That should be where the story ended, though. right? That's it. We all have a good chuckle. That's funny. Maybe we refer to her as the Gnome Shaman from now on because we're morally obligated to. But that's it. That's the end of it, right? We're not here to destroy some lady's life. We're not here to take down the Gnome Foundation. This is just a funny thing that they did, right? But that should be the end of it. There shouldn't be any more story, but there is, and that's insane to me. What has happened is that the Gnome Foundation, who hired a shaman, a professional shaman, a person who's like 99% of their online persona is about being a pro shaman, right? YouTube and LinkedIn, or not even LinkedIn, she's not really on LinkedIn, but Instagram and Facebook and all of it. This is what she does. She's a shaman, right? And she has websites and everything. They are trying to hide the fact that she's a shaman, and they're silencing anyone who merely utters the word shaman. This is crazy. Let me see if I've got a list here. They have been doing a number of weird anti-shamany actions, as I call them. I don't even know how to describe this because it doesn't make any sense to me. The Gnome Foundation, in their initial announcement of a person whose primary experience is that of being a shaman. Now, she's done other things. She has. But her primary experience is a shaman. Her most recent experience is being a shaman. If you look for her on the internet, it's shaman, 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 shaman. They don't mention the words professional shaman ever. The Gnome Foundation still hasn't uttered those words. Oh, okay, well, maybe they're trying to downplay it, right? Sure, why not? They also have taken her pro shaman website offline. If you go there now, it's all private. And I have links to all this stuff. If you go to lunduke.locals.com, there's articles up about this. You can find links to all of it because it's so bizarre. She made her Instagram account private, and her Facebook business page, which was filled with remote group video clearings and shaman things, has just been deleted. Like the last couple years of videos and posts and everything is just gone now, right? Which means that the shaman herself, Miss Holly Million, has been censoring her shaman stuff, right? Weird. When the Gnome team makes an announcement, they post it on the Gnome forum and they invite people to ask questions, right? This is just a regular thing they do. So they asked for questions. I asked a question, and other people have asked a question too. And I asked specifically, what about her background attracted you to this particular candidate? And as a follow-up, what about her being a shaman was a benefit to the Gnome Foundation? It's not even a tongue-in-cheek question. Like, I mean, a little bit. Like, I may think it's silly that they hired a shaman, but I mean, they hired someone who's so out there as a shaman. Like, she's just putting it everywhere that had to enter into their decision-making process, right? I was curious, legitimately, and still am. What about the plans for the future and the present of Gnome, the project, and the foundation? Does it make her a unique fit for? Because they took a long time to find this candidate. So clearly this was the best candidate. Great. What made her the best candidate? They deleted my question. They deleted so many questions because I went back to their forum a couple of times. I kept seeing more questions pop up and then deleted almost as quickly as they arrived. And then they actually blocked my account. There it is. They suspended my account for, quote, no constructive purpose to their actions other than creating dissent within the community. No ending period. That was their reason for suspending my account. Literally, I asked, what about this candidate made this the right candidate for the Gnome Foundation? They would not allow that, but I used the word shaman once. Boop, deleted. The same with the Reddit, the Gnome Reddit. There have been post after post after post of people talking about this. Some people making fun of it, some people making jokes, some people asking legitimately, like, well, what about this makes this person a good candidate to run the Gnome Foundation? Deleted, shadow banned. A few of the posts managed to get through and were only partially censored, like their content was edited and deleted out. or the comments were locked. But by and large, they've been censoring everything. Everything that the Gnome Foundation has the power to censor, they've been censoring, right? And the Gnome Foundation and the Gnome Project, excuse me, has not responded to any press inquiries on this topic. None at all. Not even a little bit. That is weird, right? When a foundation that hires a brand new executive director, that is one of the best times for the foundation to do fundraising, right? That is the moment. That is a moment when you get out there and you talk about the future of the foundation, how great something is. And instead of doing that, they're busy deleting everything they can and censoring everything they can about their new executive director. What? How bizarre. I mean, because really, you have three options, right? You have three options, as I see it, when you hire a new shaman as your executive director, right? I'm being very, very serious here. From my many years running marketing for open source projects, you really have only three real options, right? Because you've got a shaman out there who is now running your whole foundation, who does live stream remote clearings and teaches people with paid courses on how to be their own shaman, which feel a little weird. And she makes holy water on YouTube and sells it. Like, there's a lot of shamany stuff there, right? So what do? Three choices. Number one, as a foundation, you can embrace it. You can say, you know what? We, the Gnome Foundation, that uses a mythical creature's footprint as our logo, we just hired a shaman. Boy, did we go feet and head first. We just dove right into the lava pit of whimsy. We went full wacky, right? We can lean into it, right? That's your first choice, is you can just shout it and be proud of it. We hired a shaman. We are led by a shaman. We at the Gnome Foundation have always been a fantastical desktop environment or something like that. You really lean into it, right? You embrace it. Your second option is you can mention it, you can say, yeah, this person is or was a professional working shaman. That's how she describes herself, and that's how she put bread on the table. That's fine. But we're moving on. We're not really talking about that. That's your second option. Your third option is to hide her shaman work, to just double down and just force delete and censor and block and ban and refuse to answer questions and attack any journalist who even mentions the word shaman. Just go after them, right? Because you're afraid of the shamaniness, or you're ashamed of the shamaniness or something, or want to distance yourself from it. Here's what's weird. Here's what's really weird to me, and I haven't yet wrapped my brain around this. The Gnome Foundation and the Gnome Project puts a massive amount of emphasis on being inclusive, on being diverse, including religious diversity, right? This has really been a big part of their identity as an organization, as a community, as a project. It really has. Their code of conduct and everything else is really focused on that. Great. So you would think with that focus, you would go with option number one right there. You would embrace the fact that your new executive is a shaman. You would embrace it. You would push it. You would make it part of your marketing strategy. You would go that route. But they didn't. They didn't even go with route number two, where you just kind of don't make a big deal about it. They are Streisanding it. Right? They've chosen the route of the Streisand effect, where they are attempting to silence things so hard that they're making it a bigger story, but in a negative way. What could have been a remarkably positive opportunity for fundraising for Gnome. I mean, this could have been one of their biggest weeks of fundraising ever if they had actually thought this through. Leaning into the fact that they just hired a shaman and they're raising funds for the future of the desktop of your imaginations, of your dreams, of the fantasy of it all. You could have really, really cleaned up. But instead, they've made it feel yucky and weird. Now, so why? Why is a person, their new executive director, lots of questions here, Why is she a professional shaman, or maybe former professional shaman? I don't know what the status there is. Why is she censoring herself and deleting her content? Why is the Gnome Foundation against people talking about her being a shaman, positive or negative? They're just coming down on all of it, right? Why are they against it? I'm not against it. I think it's a little funny, but like, I don't want her to stop being a shaman just because I think it's a little funny or whimsical. Like, be a shaman, be yourself. You have my full support. You have the support of the Lunduke Journal, darn it. Miss Holly Million, if you are a shaman, you be a shaman. You let your shaman flag fly. That's what I say. But that is not what Gnome says. Gnome is ashamed of shamanism. Apparently, they are shaman-shaming, which I think is a very funny thing to say. So I'm going to say it. Shaman-shaming. But what are they doing here? I don't understand the logic. They hired someone that they knew was a shaman, a professional shaman. They were excited about it. They clearly wanted that person. They had to have wanted her, at least in part, based on her shaman experience, because she doesn't have a ton of other experience. She has a little bit of other experience, most of which was from a long time ago, right? Like she was involved with one foundation called BioBricks, but that was a decade, 2 decades ago, and back when that foundation was not doing that well, and she was a short period of time was working at that foundation, but she hasn't in forever, and it's not an exciting amount of experience, right? It doesn't lend itself to running the Gnome Foundation. So it had to be her shaman experience, had to be the cherry on top. It had to be what pushed it over and said, you know what? Yes, this is the candidate for us, which I'm not gonna deny that of them. If that's what they want, the Gnome Foundation knows what they need far better than I do. Great, rock with it. But then why censor it? Why censor the journalists? Why censor your own Gnome users and fans? Why delete comments? Why delete questions? Why block people from asking questions? Why refuse to respond to journalists? And why never, ever, ever, not even one time mention it yourself? That's so weird. And so I'm mentioning it here today because I feel like Gnome is shaman-shaming their new executive director. And that's the weirdest thing I can think of. It doesn't really say anything about shamanism. It just says something very strange about an organization that would hire someone to shame them. I don't understand what they're doing here. Now, I'm putting this out there in a video because I was trying to ask these questions directly to the Gnome Foundation and to the leaders of the Gnome Project, but they will not respond. In fact, they delete questions like this from me and many others. I'm not the only one now. I may have been the one that broke this story, but I am not the only one talking about it. So they won't respond, and they censor everyone. And so this is the only way to get a question to them is to post a video, post an article, post a podcast, put it out there, and then see if they respond to me or by themselves. My recommendation to you, Gnome, is it's not too late to fix this. What you do, seriously, pull out a pen and paper and take some notes for a minute. What you do is you go all in right now, like today. Draft up a blog post, make some graphics where you have a cartoon shaman hanging out with a big gnome or something like that, and go all in on the shaman. There's a lot of very whimsical ways you can approach this, where you can talk about how this is the person to lead you into the future. And yeah, she's a shaman, but she's not going to be great in spite of that. She's going to be great because of that. Lean into it. And then it's a positive. So if I sit out here and make a joke, right? If I make another little KDE Foundation hires a dwarf paladin as executive director, blah, blah, blah. If I make another goofy little breaking news satire joke, it may be funny, but in the end, it's a positive for you, the Gnome Foundation. right? Because as long as the Gnome Foundation is negative about the shaman thing, hiding it, censoring it, blocking it, getting angry about it, every time someone makes that joke, it makes the Gnome Foundation look weak, look wishy-washy, because do they want this person or not? Do they like shamans or don't they? We don't even know. And it makes you look bigoted. It does. Whether you want it to or not, it does. So wipe the slate clean, come out in favor of shamanism. The Gnome Foundation has a shaman. We have the Gnome shaman on board, and we are going to go forth and make the best gosh darn Linux desktop environment and related applications the world has ever seen using the power of Gnome shamanism. Whatever, however you want to word it, however you want to phrase it, whatever artwork you want to put with it, lean into it. Make it lighthearted, make it happy, and make it positive. Unceasingly positive. So positive, I want to vomit rainbows. Go nuts at it. That's what I recommend. It'll work, and it'll make you look fantastic. And if you do it right, you could even make me look bad in the process, which I know people at the Gnome Foundation want to do. So there you go. I'm being a team player here, everybody. All right. If you are not currently subscribed to the Lunduke Journal, go to lunduke.locals.com. At least grab a free account, because if you have a free account over there, you'll get notified of all the new articles, like the 3 I showed you here today, plus all the exclusives, plus video versions of every podcast. I typically only publish like a handful of the videos elsewhere, like on Rumble and YouTube and elsewhere. I'll publish a handful of videos here and there, but all of them go up at lunduke.locals.com. If you go to lunduke.com, go to lunduke.com right there on the screen. It'll give you the links to all that stuff. You can watch all of my big videos over there, and you can go to all the sites that I run, all the publications and communities I run. If you want to support what I do, and you do because you are an amazing person, there's all the details for signing up. You can get a triple pass for $95 a month. There's details on that, again, all up at lunduke.com. It's fantastic. It is glorious, and you love it very much. All right, everybody. We will see what the Gnome Foundation does. I put this in their lap. I'm trying to deliver this to them on a golden platter so I can help them out here, because I don't want to see the Gnome Foundation do poorly. If you followed my coverage, you know how positively I've been covering the Gnome Foundation. I've talked about the weird finances of Mozilla and the Linux Foundation and Wikimedia, which all have some really weird financial stuff going on behind the scenes. Shady as heck. I did a similar study of the Gnome Foundation earlier this year. If you go to lunduke.locals.com and you sign up in the content section, you can see the articles on that, and you can just search for Gnome and you'll find it right away. I did a similar study of them. You know what I came away with? I came away with how astoundingly well laid out their finances were. Their financial reports, their IRS reports were transparent, were well documented, were reasonable. There wasn't money going to weird shady stuff. I declared that it was boring in the best possible way. And that is wonderful. That makes me want to contribute to places like the Gnome Foundation ever more. And then the Gnome Foundation does stuff like this, and I'm wondering, what the heck is going on over there? Does nobody even know their hand from their feet? Come on, people. Get it together. If you have additional questions on how to handle this properly, reach out to me. I would be glad to talk to you off the record, in private, to help you guys out, because clearly you need it. You need assistance. Don't be afraid to reach out. Do not respond by attacking viciously the journalists who try to help you and occasionally good-naturedly poke you in the belly. That's not the right way to respond. That's the way a petulant little child responds. Don't behave like that. Sorry for giving you a little spanking there, but that's not how you do it. Again, I've laid this in your lap. You know how to fix this. You know how to make this look good. If you don't, you're just going to look like bigoted little weirdos forever. Don't do that, because I don't think that's who you guys want to be. All right, everybody, that's it. That's it for this episode. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, nerds and nerdettes, I do declare, end podcast.